All right, guys. Hey, we're on live air with our live Google Hangout Raw, just open conversations, our second episode. We've been getting great feedback about the sessions, and we're really excited to have Greg Harrelson on the show today. He's been in the business for 20 years, like myself, and last year his team/company closed 1,400 transactions, and a big part of that was because of his database marketing and his email drips and stuff like that. And we're going to go over that today and dive in deep and find out how Greg is actually doing this. So we are going to be recording this, so you can watch the replay later or get your pencil and paper ready because Greg has a lot of great information, and we're really excited to go. In case you don't know who I am, I'm Jeff Manson, a Hawaii real estate broker and co-founder of Real Geeks, and my co-host and partner in these live Google Hangouts is Frank Klesitz. He's the CEO of Viral Marketing. I'm smiling. I got it right.
Hey guys, I'm Frank.
It's Frank, and he's going to actually get us going today and go over the outline, and then we're going to dive in right away with Greg and get going. I don't want to even beat around the bush. Let's just go.
Great. Well, we talked a little bit beforehand. We want to kind of give a little structure to today's topics. There's really 5 things we want to cover today with Greg as far as for questions. The first thing is actually how he goes about building his database by getting emails. We're going to start off with those types of questions. Then we're going to talk about what type of content he sends to his database. What's the educational content? What does he send out to these emails when he has them? And then finally, he can identify, and it's actually possible for anyone to identify who actually clicks the links in the emails or consumes the content. And how does Greg prioritize follow-up with those people? So how does Greg get email addresses? How does he create the content? How does he prioritize follow-up with the people consuming it? Then fourth, we're going to discuss follow-up sequences. So specific canned drip campaigns for expireds and FSBOs or buyer leads that drip out right when the lead comes in to increase who's interested to the top. And then finally, we'll discuss some various CRM solutions out there, software packages or CRM out there that you can load all this stuff into, and it kind of does it for you. So Greg, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited to share, and let's get it on.
All right, man. So what everyone wants to know is how do you go about getting emails and building a database in the first place?
Yeah, so, and that's the question I get asked all the time, and everyone, is hoping that I'm going to give them some magic answer. The reality is, if you want to build a big database that is focuses on sellers. I mean, there's seller databases and there's buyer databases. So obviously, I'm using Real Geeks to capture leads, and when they go into the Real Geeks website, then they go into my Infusionsoft account. So I'm building a database just by being everywhere on the internet when it comes to buyers. But what most people are trying to figure out is how do they capture seller leads, because they're trying to generate more listings. And I tell you, we do it the old-fashioned way. We actually pick up the phone and we prospect. And right now I have a team of probably on an average day anywhere from 22 to 25 people prospecting from 8 to 11 Monday through Friday. There's a few people that come in the evenings, and then there's also people on Saturday. And when they're prospecting, they're actually looking for listing leads to set appointments. But anyone that's not going to set an appointment, then they're asking them for their email address, and then they're putting it into the database.
So each of your agents, these are licensed agents that work for you in your office.
That's correct.
Each of those agents are making what, 20 to 30 contacts, speaking to 20 to 30 people on the phone every day?
Yeah, but anywhere from you've got the the agents that are at a low end do 20 contacts, and then you've got agents that on the team that are doing 50 contacts a day.
So how many contacts total is your office making by noon every day?
Let's just say on average it's 25. So what's 25 times, say, 25? That 500? Would be our daily contacts.
It's pretty insane. So your office speaks to 500 people a day.
Well, yeah, that's between 8 and 11, yes.
That's great. And then how many of those people give you an email address when you talk to them on the phone? Now, this is a expired or a FSBO or a just listed, just sold call, someone you don't know, you're calling.
Yeah, we're going to capture probably 125 to 150 emails a day.
And what do they say to get the email?
What do we say?
Yeah.
Well, assuming that I just, was asked, going for an appointment to see if you were thinking about selling, I'd say, Frank, it sounds like to me that you're just kind of, going to hang out. You're not really interested in selling at this point. I think I don't know if you know, but a lot of your neighbors have requested that I give them updates as to what's going on in the community, and I do that periodically. What's your email address? I want to make sure you get the same information.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the script, and they give me the email, and then we put it into the database and tag
People
them.
give you the email, you call them up cold, and they give you their email address to stay in touch? I guess when you ask
Absolutely.
it that way.
Yeah, I mean, see, everyone wants to. No one wants to be left out. So, I mean, if you break down the script, I'm saying that everyone in your community or your neighbors have requested that I keep them up to speed as to what's going on. So I do that periodically. What's your email address? I'll make sure you get the same information. So I'm really, using a little bit of NLP here, where I'm making them feel like, oh my gosh, they must have missed the memo and didn't get on my email list. And
Awesome.
so they're jumping to the opportunity.
That's great. How many emails do you have in your company database right now?
196,000.
That's more than an audience of some TV stations.
Correct. Yeah. When we're sending out the newsletters, it's going out to the newsletters for the seller leads that would go out to the seller database, goes out to about 90,000 people.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you start building all this list?
It's
When did you
been
make the
a while.
decision to start getting these emails?
Well, I've been doing that probably for 5 or 6 years, but I didn't really start. I guess I didn't crack the code on how to turn the how to make money off of the emails probably until about 2.5 years ago.
Okay, but you started building it 5 years ago just by saying we might as well ask for an email address for prospecting.
Absolutely.
Hey, I got a quick question real quick there. On the 90,000 seller ones, are you sending them all the same emails? Are they neighborhood specific? Are they a little more detailed? I know we're not talking about sequences, but I'm sure maybe the audience is curious about that.
Yeah, so what's happening, I'm sending out 2 emails a week, with Get Viral, through Get Viral. So they're all getting the same there. That same content, but from then, depending on their click patterns, is going to dictate what kind of additional information they're going to get at later times.
So everyone's getting the same content twice a month, you mean?
Yes.
Not twice a week.
That's more in blast format. Like everyone's getting that twice a month. Okay.
So let's talk about that. I'll let you finish up there, but then I want to move on to what that content is. But keep going what you're saying.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is, so depending on what they're clicking on inside of that newsletter could trigger a sequence, and so if you clicked on a video on buying property, then that's going to kick you into a buyer sequence. If Frank, you read the same email, but you clicked on something about selling property, then that's going to, then a different set of content's going to come to you for the next following few days.
What about anything? Do you have anything in your sequences that are geographic specific or about their area, market updates, kind of thing like that, or is it more just specific or general for buying or selling, that kind of stuff?
So in the Infusionsoft world, people think that I'm like the tag king. In other words, I tag people for everything. So if you were to actually look at the way I've got my database segmented, I've got my database segmented in community names as well as building names. For instance, in Myrtle Beach, we have a lot of oceanfront condos or a lot of condo complexes. I've got 900 to 950 different building names with people in those or let's just say databases for over 900 buildings and over 900 residential communities.
So you have 1,800
I've got
tags?
them segmented. What's that?
You have 1,800 different tags options?
No, I've got way more than 1,800. That's just for building names, and that's building names and community names. So then I've got, so you yourself may have a tag. You might be a seller prospect tag. You may be a tag where I've tagged, if you watch a video on short sales, then I'm going to tag you as a potential short sale candidate. So depending on your click tag, your clicks create tags in my sequences.
Okay, so I know we're getting a little more deep and involved in these tags, and a lot of people may not know what they are right now. So yeah. You have tags, but if they're in a specific building and they're tagged for a specific building, the importance of that is so that way later on, if you have a listing or a buyer for that building, then you can just send to those people that are tagged with that? Is that the importance of those tags?
Yes, and so I have a staff member that manages my database, and one of the things that she does every Monday is anything that we sold the previous week. Let's just say we sold a property in a building called Holiday Sands. Well, there's a just sold email that's already sitting in my account or my application, and then she goes and looks at all the just solds, and she sees, oh, we just sold a property in this building. She goes to the account. She pretty much gets the list of property owners in that particular building and sends that email. So that email is the same email that would go out to any condo building, but because we sold a Holiday Sands, then she pulls up the Holiday Sands list, and then it adds Holiday Sands to the email. She hits go, and then all of a sudden now we just did a just sold email. And so she'll do that for every condo complex that I sell in every single week.
And just listed too, or?
No, I'm not doing it with just listed because I'm using you. I'm using your Real Geeks. So you're kind of handling all that. We've got our buyers in the Real Geeks, CRM as well as Infusionsoft. So once we're saving the searches inside of Real Geeks, then Real Geeks is kind of handling all the updates on the new listings, price reductions and whatnot. So I'm not. That would just be duplicate work. I'm not doing that.
Okay.
All right, makes sense.
So you're starting off. So to build your database, you have telephone prospecting, expireds, FSBOs, just listed, just sold calls, asking for email addresses after every contact you make on the phone. You're bringing it into a database,
absolutely,
right? And then you start with your two blast. Everyone on the list gets these 2 educational messages every single month. Let's talk about how you come up with what to send. Like you're going to press send to 90,000. I'm sure you put some thought into what you're going to put in this email. So let's talk about how you come up with that.
So as you know, you've been to my office, so you know exactly where I stand every morning from 8 to 11. Yep. And so you know that, and for those that don't know, but I'm actually in the middle of my real estate agents while they're prospecting. I'm in the middle of them, coaching them and helping them, close these people down. Right there, I'm in the pit with them. And so one of the advantages of being right there and being a coach to them is that I'm constantly hearing what's being said. So I can tell based on what my team is saying on the phone, I can tell what the consumer's saying to them based on what they're saying back to them over the phone. So I'm listening all the time, and then I'm constantly coaching my team. So when one of my agents comes to me and says, "Hey, look, this is the challenge that I'm having. Or this is the objection that somebody gave me. How would you handle it?" When I do that throughout the month, I'm getting clues as to what the consumer's dealing with, and so every single month, or multiple times a month, I will hear things consistently said, and I'm like, that's interesting that it seems like this month the consumers or buyers or sellers are saying this, so then I create an article to speak to that. So I'm answering questions that I know that they're asking my agents, and we're making enough contacts on a daily basis where I believe that I can just assume that we're a sample of the overall market. I mean, if we're making 500 a day, and we're doing that 5 days a week, that's 2,500. So we're making 10,000 contacts in a month. I believe that's enough contacts for me to understand what the heck's going on in my local market, and all I got to do is speak on that.
I think anyone would agree with you. When you speak to 10,000 people a month, you're doing much more than the average.
Sure. And I've built the system and the manpower to be able to handle that, and that's what that I think my advantage is, that I am making the contacts, and in doing so, the consumer's telling me what they need or what their challenges are.
So what's a question you've answered? Let's say in your last email, you're just basically taking questions and answering them. What's a question you answered?
What would the ramifications of a hike in interest rates be?
And you write the answer to that.
Absolutely.
What's another question?
Gosh, what would another question be? Another question would be, why do properties fail to sell? So this would be for expireds. Constantly there's so many properties that are on the market, and I'll hear these agents come up and say, and I'll hear consumers continuing to ask my agents, well, you just want the listing. I mean, why do you think it didn't sell? So I'll answer that question.
So all the questions.
Why are properties failing to sell in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina?
Yeah, objections from people on the phone.
Absolutely, objections. Or if there's a if the stock market's going up like crazy, and I'm listening to these analysts talk about the real estate market, and what'll happen is I will hear what they're saying on TV, and then I'll notice there's a conflict between what they're saying on TV and what the actual local numbers are. So that right there, I'm concerned that if my consumers are watching TV and they think that that's an indication of what's going on in the local market, they're going to make bad decisions because TV's speaking nationally, not local. So when I know that something big's hitting on the news, but I know it doesn't apply to my market, then I'll actually address that issue.
How long is this write-up? How long is this?
I try to keep the write-up to, probably 2 paragraphs. Sometimes it'll get 3 paragraphs, but if it gets longer than about 2 paragraphs, then usually what I'll do is I'll have a link, and I'll disclose to them, hey, I'm going to give you an answer that's much longer than is typically normal for an email. So if you're wanting the information, then click here, and you can read the my answer in its entirety.
So this is not very long. This is 2 paragraphs in an email.
Well, if they're clicking, then they're going to go, and it could be a page. It could literally be a news article in a sense, the length of a news article.
Okay. And you said
that. But I'm not going to do that in the email itself.
Got it. So the email has like a little teaser in it. Then when they click the link, it goes back to your website with more of it.
Yeah, it's more than a teaser, and the email goes out in a template. So on the top there's a header that it's branding me. On the left column there's numbers. So every single when the email goes out, there's going to be some statistics. Okay. On the market statistics. So there's information that if no one ever goes to the additional information, there's value right there.
On your website, don't you publish these newsletters?
Yes.
Where could someone go to see an example?
On the homepage, I think at the bottom.
Was it C21? Was it C21 Real Estate?
C21 the Harrelson Group.
C21 the Harrelson.
Yes, C21 the Harrelson Group.
Then I go down to the bottom, and I'm going to see. What do I click on? Monthly market updates.
Yes, and then we'll click on that, and you might see an archive.
Real estate news and real estate notes. Got it. And those are all the links to all your different newsletters. Interesting. That's great.
Is there archive there?
Yep, I can see them.
Okay. That's it. That's them probably for the last 2 years.
Great.
Or at least a year.
Okay, so we got the content, and people can go to the website to see examples, and you're listening to customers to come up with what you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
2 blasts a month out to everything you got. The whole list are getting these 2 educational messages. Now, a small percentage of those people actually consume it, click a link, or show that they're engaged with it. Do you prioritize follow-up with those people?
Yeah, so depending on what they're clicking. Okay, so just because somebody clicks doesn't mean they're ready to do anything. So, for instance, let's just say we were prospecting for sale by owners today. I'll walk you through, kind of a little sequence here. Prospect a for sale by owner today, and they say, I'm not ready to list, and I don't want you to come over. So, no problem. We'll put you in the, our sequence, or I don't tell them that, but we put them into our sequence after we get their email address. And then an email goes out to them, and it says, hey, I appreciate the time on the phone. I don't think that we discussed this, but when I got off the phone, I was just thinking about another for sale owner that actually successfully sold their property on their own. And they use Craigslist. I don't know if you know what Craigslist is, but here's a link to Craigslist just in case you would want to check it out and maybe advertise your property. And so if they click that link, I'm going to be alerted that they clicked that link, but I'm not necessarily going to go do anything with that, with the exception of if they click the link, then send them the following email. Mm-hmm. If they click this link, then the next day they're going to get another email from me, and it's going to say, hey, I don't know if you checked out Craigslist, but I was looking through some ads, and I wanted to give you a copy of an ad that seems to be really good just in case you ever move forward. Here's an example of a good Craigslist ad. Click here. If they click that, then they're going to go to get another email the next day, but the entire time I'm calculating this. I'm seeing if they are, number one, I'm looking to see if they're engaging or consuming my content. So I know that this person's consuming right now. So I'm just going to hang out, send them another email, and the next email may say, won't have anything to click, but it says, hey, before, one thing I forgot to mention, make sure don't put any personal information in Craigslist. Sometimes people, could take that information, they're going to start harassing you and whatnot, so don't do anything like that. So now, in a way, I'm kind of like, don't advertise it on yourself, but again, I'm coming across as serving them. And then another email will go, and it'll say, I don't know, hey, here's some information about my commission structure, and I have a compromise for sale bond or commission compromise program. If you'd like some information on that, click here. As soon as they click that, then what I know is that they clicked on the Craigslist ad, or on the link to Craigslist. They clicked on the Craigslist ad. They know I'm seeking to serve them. Now they're looking at my commission. I will be calling that person in minutes.
And how do you? So let me simplify this.
Yes.
2 blast emails going out to the whole list, 1st and the 15th.
Yes.
Then there's certain links in these emails. You probably have just, here's the content. Then you have maybe, if you're interested in buying, click here to search for homes in the email as well. Maybe on the right-hand navigation. Or you have...
thinking about selling.
Yeah, find out what your home value is worth or something like that if you're thinking of selling.
Sure.
And then when someone clicks a link like that, it goes off into like other drip campaigns. It starts sending them a little more information that's more specific if you're buying or selling. And if they take that and they click that down a path to actually finding out and putting their home value in a calculator, you get instantly notified by email that this person that received your Big Blast newsletter clicked some link in your newsletter, got taken down a very side funnel, and basically now has put their information into a calculator. You call them right away.
Oh, absolutely. If they're doing a calculator, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, is that an email that gets fired? I mean, how are you notified on that?
I'm notified by an email. So for instance, if somebody put a, you'll see some of the, if for those of you that go to the website and check out some of my newsletters, you may see a newsletter maybe within the last 2 to 3 months that says something like, I get a lot of people asking me if they were going to sell their property, how could they calculate their net? Like, how do you calculate a net sheet to figure out how much I would get after selling a property in your market? And then there's a link. They click that link, and then we created a calculator. Okay, it goes to a landing page where there's a calculator. Mm-hmm. They then put in what the selling price would be, and then they hit calculate, and then I've got it programmed to calculate, what the net sheet would be with commission and deed stamps and all the things that we deal with. As soon as they hit calculate, then boom, it'll show them what their net will be, and it'll break down the expenses. But as soon as they hit calculate, it also sends me a carbon copy of everything that they put into that calculator. So not only am I going to call them because I know that they clicked the calculator, but before I call them, I know what price they're thinking about selling it for. I know what their mortgage balance is. I know what their net's going to be. I know what they know about their net. So when I call them, I'm not going to say, oh, Frank, I see that you think you can sell it for $200 and you owe $180. I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to know that. So when I call, I'm ready to go. I'm very prepared, and we're doing that constantly.
That's great. Do you include, by the way, let me go back to an earlier question, is in building your database, obviously you're prospecting to get email addresses, and your team's prospecting email addresses, and they're all getting these 2 educational updates a month. Have you... what about past clients, centers of influence? All of those emails, they're receiving these too, right?
Yeah, I mean, past clients, centers of influence. I've got databases where they're mortgage lenders. So I'll have the majority of the mortgage lenders in my market, the real estate attorneys, the insurance agents. I've got, say mortgage lenders and insurance agents and real estate attorneys, they all get the same exact newsletter as a person that's just in my database, like the general two emails a month.
Okay.
So I've got categories for, if they're alive and they've got an email address, then I've got a category for them.
All right. Well, let's get into a little bit maybe of the specific programs that you're using to execute this stuff. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the calculator. The hot thing now is get your free value report. I don't think I can go a day on Facebook without seeing someone running an ad for that. There's a lot of different free value report sites. Have you tried some? Any ones you'd recommend to where someone could send somebody to put their property address in?
I'm using Jeff's. Jeff has a I don't know what you call it, a widget or a program or whatever, a valuation tool, and I'm using the Real Geeks valuation tool now. But I went on strong with it. Now what I'm doing is I'm not going on Facebook like everyone in the world's doing it, because once everyone goes on and does it, then the consumer becomes numb to it. And so that's one of those tools that it came on and it's going to go away so fast because we're overusing it. So what I'm doing now is I'm just embedding them in my email sequences, and I'm not making it I'm not using it as a lead capture. I'm using it as a value add.
Hey,
Okay.
I got a quick thing in here. I'm not trying to plug or anything, but we recently, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, Greg. You guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We actually made it so it's now by default shows up on the individual property pages. So when the consumer that's already logged on to the website is getting the daily email updates and they're looking at the properties, that valuation tool now shows up excuse me, on the detailed property page. And I'm not personally promoting it, landing them on a page, but I'm getting myself these notifications that these consumers are filling this out, and if they're already logged in on the site, it's not going to ask them to sign up. It'll go through and give them the report, and my agents are getting these valuations, probably 5 or 6 a day, of people who are already existing on the website are filling it out. We're getting their property, the valuation it gave to them, and now we got a trigger. That's a trigger, right? So they are actually calling and following up on them, and if they're local, they're going after the listing, because now we got a potential listing. But if they're out of area, because we're in Hawaii, and it's probably the same thing for you, now you know that they're putting in their LA property or their New York property, and that's a trigger for the agent to now call and follow up for see if they need to sell that property, and you can hook them up and get a referral, especially if they're looking in your area. So now you're another way to communicate and build a bond and get their email, further things. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that in.
No, great, Jeff. Appreciate that.
Let me say one thing on that, Jeff. Thank you for throwing that in, because I have not been posting this dang widget anywhere, and in the last week, I've gotten a ton of leads from the valuation tool, and I didn't know where the heck they were coming from. As a matter of fact, I was setting some of my buyers agents down, and I said, what's going on? But now I know why. But so it's working. It's just I had no idea where all these leads were coming from on the valuation tool.
Yeah, so we embedded it, so it doesn't reassign it. So like if you're landing into the seller page, it'll create a new seller lead, and you can have a different agent dealing with those. But it's actually going to the agent it's already assigned to and notifying that this person filled this out, and you should be following up with it. I thought we announced it on the Facebook group, but maybe you missed it. Anyway, that's why.
So Greg, let's go back to your emails. So you have your lead capture is the Real Geeks seller site, is where you send them there, they put their property address, and that gives them basically the CMA. All right?
For the buyers, yes.
For the
yes,
buyers.
for seller valuation.
Yeah, basically Real Geeks search for homes to get a free value report. Now, when it comes to sending the emails out, we all know you use Infusionsoft, and that's what you're using to send your emails, and it has all the sequences that have all the email triggers in there. But maybe what I'd like to hear is, you've been through a lot of different email marketing programs, and can maybe you lead us through the story of how you ended up with Infusionsoft?
Yeah, well, yes, because I was doing database marketing prior to Infusionsoft, because you and I started working together before you may have been the one that told me about Infusionsoft. I don't know if you did or not.
We diagrammed about in your office with all the follow-up sequences.
Yeah, when you came down. And so before that, I was using like a Constant Contact. I can't remember the other one, Results Mail, I think it was, that I was using, and Constant Contact, and I was just putting everything in there. But what was happening when I was using those systems is I found myself, they weren't intelligent systems. I could do email blast. I could just blast the heck out of a database all day long, but I wasn't learning anything about my database. So if I'm not learning, whether you're engaging or not, I could learn whether or not you opened it, sure, and click-through rates, and all that basic analytics that people kind of get excited about. But the reality is I want to learn a little bit more about how you think, not necessarily whether or not you click something. And once I found out about Infusionsoft and I realized, okay, it's an intelligent system, I can understand a little bit more about the patterns, the thinking patterns, the click patterns, more so than just whether or not you opened it, then that's when I migrated around. And it was a big jump because it's so easy to use Constant Contact or Vertical Response. You just load it up, hit the button, and it's gone. But what happened is everyone started doing it. And when everyone starts doing it, then that's when I start changing. Because I know when everyone starts doing it, when email marketing got too easy, when everyone in our business learned how to send an e-blast, then what'd they do? They sent out too many, and they didn't think about the value. And so once that started happening, I said, uh-oh, I know where this is going. It just got too easy. I need to step up my game, and I didn't need to take an educational approach, add value through education. I mean, my whole commitment is to empower the consumer with information, and I don't do that by just blasting them all the time. I have to understand my consumer. So that's why I have so many tags, because at any point I can go to my database and I can pull up a list of everyone who has consumed at least 30 articles or videos of mine, and then I know that those people, those are my advocates, because I can tell based on the consumption, how much they've consumed, that everything I put out there, they're going to engage in. So if I really need a referral, if I need, that's the list I can go to and say, hey, I'm thinking about opening up an office in Charleston, South Carolina. Do you know anyone in Charleston? Those are the ones that's actually going to respond. Oh, yeah, I've got a friend. He's a realtor. He needs to come work for you. Or my mom is thinking about selling. Talk to her. So I couldn't do that with those older or the other systems.
Are you running your whole business through Infusionsoft now? Does it replace Top Producer or whatever else you're using as well?
Yeah, so now I'm running I've always used my Top Producer for my active sellers, but right now all of my active sellers are being migrated into Infusionsoft. So if it's a new seller, they go right into Infusionsoft. So but I still have some sellers that are in my Top Producer, in the drips and Top Producer, so I don't want to double drip them, and it's too hard to start them in the middle of a campaign in Infusionsoft. So I'm running the two systems, but I'm weaning Top Producer out.
Okay. All right. So here's another question I got for you. So I'm going to write these down. This is probably something we want to get a pen and paper out, everyone, for this. Is you're getting email addresses, you're loading up all your past clients, all your sphere, maybe exporting all your Facebook friend emails, which you can get, by the way, by linking them up to a Yahoo address book and get those emails. Your LinkedIn contacts, get those emails. You can get the emails out of all your systems, and you put them into one big list.
Yeah, let me just add, don't forget to get the emails out of your cell phone.
Cell phone, like iCloud or, yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that are probably watching that are thinking like, gosh, he's got a great database. But you know where my database started? Database started from my cell phone. Yeah. I realized that how many people that I've got their information, I just never put it in a spreadsheet and actually loaded it up in a database.
So you go through all these systems and you export everything, bring it into one, and usually the email marketing programs, like even the inexpensive ones, we use verticalresponse.com here at Viral, automatically deduplicates them all. And then you have a commitment to go out and prospect and get new email addresses, so you keep feeding it. You're sending out 2 educational videos every month, or educational messages rather, to your database every single month. Okay. And the written messages are good for you because they scale to the rest of your team. That's why the writing works very well for you.
That's correct.
But then further is you have additional campaigns. And what these are very specific timed email drips, like day 0, day 3, day 5, day 10, day 20, that drip out for each individual lead source. Okay? Yes. And that's on top of the 2 educational messages that everybody gets in the whole list every single month. Can you, one by one, so 1, 2, 3, 4, name all of the sequences someone should have so they're covered on every possible lead follow-up campaign there is in real estate?
Okay, I mean that's a tough one.
I know it is. I want to hear it.
We'll start with the easy ones, and then you kind of, if you want to ask me a follow-up question, you might remind me of a few more. But I mean, let's just start with the easy ones. I mean, first of all, you got to have a buyer campaign. That's number one.
How long should that be?
And the buyer campaign needs to be a minimum of 2 years in length. It cannot be 2 months or 3 months, because we know how long internet buyers take to convert. Then you've got to have what I call an SLD general, which is a seller lead, just a general sequence. And that the type of person that would go in that would be the person we were prospecting. And they said, no, I'm not thinking about selling. But sure, send me some updates as to what's going on. So then they're going to run through a sequence. And that sequence will last that particular sequence right there right now is lasting 2 years. Okay? Then you got expireds. You got FSBOs. You got rentbos. Rentbo is just somebody's a for rent by owner. Somebody's trying to rent their property through Craigslist. Well, if they're trying to rent it, guess what? They're an owner. So there's a great opportunity to capture a new seller lead. They're an owner with a cash flow issue. So they're probably an owner that if you had a buyer, you could solve their cash flow issues if they sold it. Then you've got things like for people that are Dave Ramsey followers, or you could have campaigns for Dave Ramsey. That would be another. If not everyone uses Dave Ramsey, but if you did, you write campaigns for those. You've got your centers of influence. You've got your past customers. I've got one called Adopt a Buyer, which is where it's a 4-year campaign where somebody, if somebody buys one of my properties through another real estate agent, they buy one of my listings through another real estate agent, then after it closes, we'll call that buyer, introduce ourselves, and make ourselves available if they ever have questions on that particular property, since we know the property probably better than any agent since we were the listing agent. And I put them into Adopt a Buyer because I know that they're statistically going to sell probably in 4 to 5 years. So I've got a 4-year Adopt a Buyer program. And I'm monitoring their click patterns the entire time. That's how I'm building listings in the future. I'm already prospecting for listings 4 years from now. What else is there?
Do you have a seller welcome sequence?
Yes, yeah. So I've got an active seller sequence. Got an active seller sequence.
Does that encourage price reductions?
Yes. Absolutely.
Click here,
so
fill
I
out
have
contracts,
it timed out because I like to do price reductions every 21 days, so I have it timed out where it may not be a ask for a price reduction, but the following, when I know that it's a time to ask for a price reduction, then I will kind of start presenting information that gets them thinking without just being so in your face. It's time to reduce. So I'm warming them up, and then I've got a calculator, of course, inside of my seller lead or in my active seller campaign that says, I sent an email. I've noticed in the MLS that there's been quite a few sales, and I did some research and realized that a fairly high % of people that are selling right now are actually sold about 14 days after they've had a price reduction, a price adjustment. And if you've ever thought about adjusting your price and would like to know how that would affect your net, here's a calculator. Put in whatever price you think you would want to adjust it to, and you can calculate your net sheet. Well, as soon as they hit calculate, I get an email, and it tells me what my seller is potentially thinking as a new price. So I will call that seller because I know that, hey, this is the time to talk to that seller. So I've got all kinds of things.
What about reviews?
What's that?
Online reviews gathering at the very end of the transaction?
Yeah, I don't have the reviews, and I don't have the transaction. All the things that's going on after I've got something pending to closing, I do not have any of that stuff in my account as of now. We're working on it, but it's very complex, and I'm not convinced that it's the right thing to do.
And then I also know you're working on a recruiting sequence too.
Yes, absolutely. So
agents.
I've got an insane recruiting sequence that's about ready to be launched. I actually have my entire team. So in my account, I have training. I have a 60-day training, listing training, and a 60-day buyer training. So if you're a new agent and you are going to join our team, as soon as you join, I actually plug you into Infusionsoft, and I've automated the first 4 months of training. It's all through Infusionsoft.
Nice. Hey, Greg, I got a quick question. You rolled through some of those pretty quickly.
Yes.
On the expireds, how long is it expired in FSBO sequences, and then what do they do when that that sequence is finished?
Yes. So good question. So the expired sequence goes for about 1 month. Okay. And I don't know the exact number of days, but then what happens if we haven't converted, if that expired is still an expired after 1 month, then it automatically rolls into the SLD general.
Okay.
So the FSBO, the rent bow and the expired all start off for the first month as specific to that audience. But if it's not converted, then it merges back into the general, and then it drips on them for 2 years.
So those are only run for a month. So those probably run at a little bit tighter frequencies as far as the number. How many emails are in a month for like an expired listing or a FSBO?
Let's say an expired. I would say 6 to 7.
6 to 7. Okay.
Yeah, and that 5 to 7, somewhere in that range. And remember, we're calling too, so we're really after them.
Yeah, so you're not hiding behind the technology in these emails and hoping this expired is going to call. Those emails are actually dripping on them and reminding them of who you are, and it's giving them good educational information about selling their home and what might have happened, why it didn't sell, and you guys are continually following up and prospecting them.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yes. I mean, and this is, and I'm glad you bring this up, because a lot of people, and Frank, you and I have talked about this before. This is where a lot of people get it messed up. They think these systems are lead generators. These are not lead generating systems. These are lead identifier systems. I mean, Frank, when you send out those 2 emails a month, and we see the analytics, all you're doing is saying, hey, these are the people that we've identified that are engaging. When they engage and then they go into my Infusionsoft, then I'm looking at analytics and I'm saying these are the people that are engaging. All I'm doing is identifying consumption. I'm identifying opportunities. It's not generating it for me. I mean, I do get every month people to call me up and say, thank you. I don't know how you got my email. Maybe we talked one day, but you may not know me, but can you come list me? Yes, I do get those, but I mean, and I get a lot of those, but that's not, I don't rely on that. The biggest bulk of our business comes from us being proactively reaching them, going out and calling them. But we're just choosing who to call that day based on the people that we think are highly probable of converting.
So you're using the technology to identify the hotter buyers or sellers. So you're now contacting them when they're ready to go.
Yes, it's an identifier. Yes.
You're not using the technology in hopes that they're going to call you and want to do something.
No, absolutely not. That's not predictable, nor is it duplicatable.
Well, I want to switch gears here just a little bit, and I want to open up to the questions that we have here, like at least the last 10, 15 minutes. So I do see finally the questions over here on the right. So if you have questions, go ahead and get them in and vote them up, and I'll ask Greg here. But here's one of the questions everyone's thinking about is like, my God, this is a lot of technology, and this is very complicated. How do I pull this off? Right? So we try to keep it simple at the very beginning by going out and prospecting, asking for email addresses, sending out 2 very simple educational messages a month, calling and prioritizing your basic follow-up with the basic analytics that email marketing gives you, right, of who's opening and clicking your emails. And then you have a way of taking it further, so when people click emails, they go on other campaigns, and then I'll name them, if anyone's interested, the 10 different campaigns that you have in addition to 2 videos a month. You have a buyer lead campaign, seller lead campaign number 2, expired, FSBO, rentbo, Dave Ramsey, COI, past client, Center of Influence past client, adopt a buyer, an active seller, price reduction campaign, and then a recruiting campaign. And those are all pre-written, so you don't write those twice a month. I mean, how many emails total?
Yeah, no, I don't write those. Those are already done.
Yeah, those 10 campaigns are pre-written and they just drip out, right?
Yes.
Now, what's really interesting, and I have to share this, is Greg has, how many prospectors do you have in your office? 25, Greg?
Yeah.
They don't have a computer at their desk.
No, very few of them do. A few of them do, but no, not really.
Yeah, well, you don't want them to have a computer at their desk. Now, they're not inside Infusionsoft putting these in and tagging it up while they're prospecting, are they?
No.
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 What they're doing is they're writing the email down on a sheet of paper, and they throw it on the ground. And then when they're done with their prospecting, they take all those sheets of paper, give them to your assistant, and your assistant writes it in to their specific own account inside Infusionsoft. So you have one Infusionsoft for the whole office, but every agent has their own account, and then the assistant manually enters them all in, right?
That is correct, yes.
I think that's incredibly important for everyone to know how.
It for the agent.
Yeah, they're not tied up in the technology.
No, not at all.
The way this should be done, executed correctly, if you want to put someone on a campaign, is you should have just one bookmark toolbar that has, you put in your first name, last name, email, phone, maybe some tags, like on a computer, if you had that, or on a sheet of paper, and you click submit, and it automatically goes on the sequence. Now, I do know, Greg, that you have where someone can go to learn more about some of these campaigns that you have written, and they are available. Is that right? Where would someone go to find that?
Well, you could go to realestatesalessolutions.com and get information. I mean, I've written so many articles on drip campaigns, like, things like turning your database into a data bank. I mean, it's just all sitting on that website. If they go there, you could learn tons of stuff on there. And then if they are interested in anything that I'm doing, like from an Infusionsoft standpoint, then there's links for demos on that website if anyone wants to get involved.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go through a couple of the questions here. If you want to ask them, I'll answer them really quick. But the first question here is, what database management system does Greg use? I'd assume Infusionsoft. Is there any? Would you like to elaborate on that at all?
There's nothing to elaborate on. I mean, I'm using. So I will elaborate a little bit. Real Geeks is my website. Period. Okay, that's my website. So when buyers go to that website and they sign up for searches through that, the IDX, then Jeff created an integration where as soon as they sign up on Real Geeks, it automatically transfers into my Infusionsoft account and kicks off a multi-year campaign. So I do have technically I have two different databases or CRMs, and that would be for the buyers, it kicks off in Real Geeks, and then everything else everything's into Infusionsoft.
Great. Then, Jeff, your buyer and seller sites, are those built into Real Geeks?
What do you mean the buyer and seller sites?
Yeah, like the place you would send someone to register to get a free value report, or a place someone would go to search for homes. That's all within the Real Geeks
that's all
platform.
built into the site. I don't want it to become a Real Geeks commercial because we're trying to keep it real here and educate agents. But since you brought it up, we have
just a question here. We're answering them.
Yeah. So I just don't want people to think we're running a commercial here because that's not what these are about. But our sites have a built-in IDX search where we'll get the consumer to sign up. It'll dump in there, and if you're using Infusionsoft, like Greg's team is, it'll push it in, and when it gets assigned to one of his team members, it will push it into Infusionsoft under that agent's bucket and fire off that sequence. And we also have a seller sequence too. So if they use our seller tool and a new seller comes in, because we have a different round robin for the seller tool, it'll push that into Infusionsoft under that agent's bucket and fire off the seller sequence. So I'll keep it at that.
Thanks, Jeff. Greg, do you have, this would be amazing if you had a copy in your office, but remember the sheet? So you have the contact sheet that everyone has at their desk of, they mark off every time they make a dial, every time they make a contact, every lead they generate is written on a sheet of paper in front of everyone's prospecting stand. But then there's a second sheet of paper where they write down when they actually make a contact all the information and all the tags that they're supposed to go in Infusionsoft. Do you by chance have a copy of that you can hold up to the camera in your office?
No, I don't. I'm in my home office right now. I don't have anything like that.
But you do have like this opt-in form. That'd be really kind of cool if we can share that. Unfortunately, we can't. Does Infusionsoft take place at Top Producer, Greg?
It is for me now. I mean, I've been using Top Producer for years, and I've finally just I've been using it for years to manage my listing inventory, my active sellers. But I'm migrating out of that. So right now, I'm pretty much done with Top Producer.
Okay. If you were starting a new brokerage, would you suggest incorporating Infusionsoft from the get-go?
A new brokerage?
Yeah, a new brokerage. Specifically, if I were starting a new brokerage,
would you suggest
incorporating Infusionsoft that way?
If I was starting any business in any industry, I wouldn't do it without Infusionsoft. Any business, any industry. And I got friends. I've got friends that I'm helping implement Infusionsoft in multiple businesses beyond real estate. So the answer is there's no doubt. It's a competitive advantage, for those that. I get to monitor people's click patterns. Are you kidding me? You can't do that. Think about that campaign that I just explained about my seller. It's like here's a calculator. Just in case you'd like to know that if you did reduce your price, what the net would be. Do you know how powerful that information is?
Let's talk about, since we got a couple brokerage questions, and you are doing like 1,500 deals with your staff. Let's talk a little bit about how when new agents join your brokerage, do you load their contacts into Infusionsoft? This is an actual question that was asked here.
Yes. So the way it is so I have an account. Let's just and this will just be a term that I'm going to make up. I've got a master account, and then under that account, which is my account, then you can have contact owners. So I'm an account owner, but under an account owner, you can have contact owner. So a contact owner would be any of my team members. So an agent, Agent Joe, will have an account under my account, and so anything that any names and email addresses or information that he was to put into the Infusionsoft account, he would be considered the contact owner. And so anything that I send out from a brokerage standpoint, when I'm sending out those 2 emails each month, what's happening is as soon as I send it out, I have it programmed to recognize each email address and who the contact owner is, so it brands the individual team member right there on the spot.
I have to restate what Greg said here.
Yeah. You'd better help him understand.
Okay, this is so cool, dude. Okay, so you sit down. It takes you, what, an hour to write your piece of content?
Yeah, about an hour and a half.
But there's no value if it's coming from you out to the whole list because those are each agent's databases.
Correct.
Okay? So really what you're doing is, yes, you're sending out 2 messages, but that message you're writing is being pushed through an email template that's branded for the agent from them out to their list 30 times.
Yes, Infusionsoft will recognize. We've done some custom programming where it'll recognize that this email address is attached to Agent A. So then if it's attached to Agent A, then it changes the header on the email to brand Agent A.
Oh my God.
And that happens.
This is an insane amount of programming. I'm sorry. This just gets me excited how cool that is.
Yeah. It is pretty cool.
That's very cool. So I just want to share that.
We've already got it figured out. So, it wasn't that hard for the programmer to figure out, but I have no clue how it works.
All right, I'm keep going down. We have a couple other older questions. What are you using for your newsletters? You're using Infusionsoft, and it's basically a newsletter template. Is it a 2-column newsletter template in Infusionsoft?
No, it's just a header, a left sidebar, and then a body.
Yeah, and the body, the content goes, and the sidebar is the call to actions.
Yes, and some local market statistics.
Okay, great. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to post them here. I'm just going through and answering them. Where do you get your calculator, the link that you send to sellers?
We created it. So, as soon as, like a net sheet calculator, all I did is we have a net sheet. We have a sheet of paper where we can calculate net sheet. All I did was have one of my programmer just take that exact formula and create an Excel, create it on Excel and then send it to the programmer, and he created a landing page. So I've got some website somewhere. I think it's called realestatecalculators.com. I don't know. It's useless in the sense it's not for anyone to go out and see. But we have a calculator website that every time we create a calculator, that's where he sits it. So then they go out there and just go to that link. It's
kind of like a shorterstay.com. Have you heard of that?
No.
It has like a shorter stay, I believe, is like should you short sell your home or stay, and it's a calculator that generates lead.
Oh, I like it.
And you can go to shorterstay.com, and that's an option. I've heard of it.
Hey, Greg, I got a question.
Yeah.
What is the key to writing good content that you're going to get user engagement? I know it's pretty vague and pretty broad, but just sending out blasts, like you said before, like normal agents do all these blasts. Everyone's just hitting spam and everything. So, how do you do that?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that I would say is if you were to receive what you were sending, how would you react? If you were to receive what you were sending, how would you react? Would you just delete it? Would you spam it? Would you opt out? Would you unsubscribe? Or you'd be like, hey man, this is awesome. So, that's the first test. If you wouldn't read it, then don't send it. That's number one. And number two, I would say the second question you have to ask yourself is, does it matter? Does it matter? If you didn't send that information, does it matter? If you do send this article, does it matter? And if the answer is no, then don't send it.
So in other words, if it brings value, then send it. If it brings no value except for saying, hey, I'm the greatest agent, or I've done this and all this crap that most agents send out about how super they are, then don't send it because it brings no value to anybody, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're selling, don't send it. You don't sell through community. See, there's too much noise out there right now. I mean, I look at the Facebook posts and all these e-blasts that go out, and I am just laughing. I can tell when somebody, I know by the email blast, I can almost predict what kind of producer it is, just by the how spammy they are when it comes to what they're sending out. And I can tell that whether they're being opted out or unsubscribes. And that's what you got to remember. Remember, it's so easy for people to unsubscribe. So, you know, if you got a database and you're getting a lot of unsubscribes, well, you got to understand, like, set the ego aside. Here's what that means. It means your content stinks. That's what that means. Opt-outs and unsubscribes is feedback. That means your content stinks.
Yeah,
And I work too hard. I mean, I've got a team of individuals working their tail off to build the database. The last thing I want to do is slip up and send some slimy email, and then all of a sudden I get 100 opt-outs. Well, man, you know, that's 20% of, you know, that's one day's worth of work right there.
Yeah, totally.
Who is your programmer, Greg? Someone wants to know that helped you with all this programming.
I'm using Get You Wired is who I use, and his name's Dobbin Buck. Get You Wired. He's the master.
He is awesome.
I know it, and everyone in the industry knows it. He's the master.
Adam Levy wants to know: is that the moon behind you, Jeff Manson?
The moon?
Yeah, is that the moon?
Oh no, that's the reflection of the lamp that's shining on me, so I have enough light. I just looked back. Is that the moon? No.
I was wondering too. I thought I had to ask. I thought I had to ask.
It's the big thing shining on me, cooking my butt here in Hawaii.
Here's a good question. Would you support agents being branded as a brokerage and not personally, Greg?
Do I support? Say that again.
Let me read again. Would you support agents being branded as brokerage, not personally?
I don't know that I understand the question.
I think what he's asking is, remember how we said we sent out the you're sending out the content branded as the agent? Like it's from the agent to their list. Why not just send it out from the brokerage out to their list and skip the branding of the agent out to their list?
Okay, so we'll take here's one, like, let's just say it's their past customer list, or it's their centers of influence list. So we know from a centers of influence list that would make no sense. On top of that, because that's probably a brokerage owner or a broker in charge that's asking that question, you got to understand that if the agents are building a database and they're allowing you to touch it, I think you should reciprocate by giving them credit. That's a fair trade. If you didn't do it that way, then that would be me saying, go build the database, put in my account, and then I'm never going to let anybody know about you. I don't believe you would get participation if you weren't giving them credit. So I could be wrong, but that's my answer.
Okay. Are your sequences and your content built into Infusionsoft? There's a question.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That runs. That's the engine that runs everything.
Great. And you do have a seller site. Your seller site, again, just going through some old questions. Your seller site is with Real Geeks, right? So you're sending them to the Real Geeks site, correct, for seller leads?
Valuation tool is a Real Geeks product. Yes.
Great. And the email program you use is exclusively Infusionsoft?
Yes.
Right. Good.
Mm-hmm.
What is your value proposition to get and keep agents?
Well, as you can imagine, this is one of them, because I have agents that are sitting there prospecting every day, and they're turning in these emails, and then I'm doing all this work, creating this content, managing all this, and then they wake up in the morning, and all of a sudden they get this email. and from some person named Jeff that says, I want to sell my home, could you come over and list it? And then they're sitting here coming to me or my assistant saying, do you know who this guy is? Can you find him in the database? I don't think I've ever talked to this guy. Then we go over to Infusionsoft, we pull him up, said, yes, you talked to him on this day. He owns over here in Holiday Sands, you know, and here's the notes from the call. And then all of a sudden he calls and he gets a listing. I mean, they're come list me calls. So that's just one. The other thing that my value proposition is that I understand the business, and I can coach them. I'm coaching people on how to produce at high levels.
Greg, is that DVD still available?
I'm adding that value.
Is that DVD still out there we made back in the day?
Yeah.
I went out to Greg's office and flew out there with a video camera for 2.5 hours, actually the whole day, and recorded everything what this guy does to sell us many homes. And I think I edited it down to about 2 hours or so. It's available online. I think if you type in Greg Harrelson DVD, it'll show up. I think you ask for a small donation to get it, and someone can watch the DVD, Greg?
Yeah, that's right. It was a donation to the Easter sales, and they got the DVD.
And what you'll see for the value proposition is not anything tactical, such as so much this. It's that Greg is in the office with like 30 people around him, screaming at the top of his lungs, prospecting, leading the troops in the battle every day, right?
Yes.
That's what you're doing. Great. Well, that was a full hour, guys. Want to recap the event, Jeff, and what's coming up?
Yeah, okay. So basically next episode is going to be Tom Nickley, and we're going to actually be doing that on July 10th. We're trying to do these every other Thursday, but we got 4th of July weekend and all that, so we're just going to skip that Thursday, and we're going to skip over to July 10th. We're going to have Tom Nickley, and he's a newer agent from Orlando that really gets it. He gets it like Greg gets it, that the power comes with communicating and contacting. He uses, he uses the technology to get the lead, but then he follows up with them and really connects with them and makes a phone call. And I'm just going to give you a few stats here. He started at the end of last year. His first 7 weeks in real estate, he put 4 into escrow, had 1 closing, 2 listings taken, and he was actively working with 12 buyers. He had to bring on a buyer's agent as a brand new agent after 2 months in the business. And this year, for 2014, he's on track to do right around 60 transactions his first year in the business. And 1/3 of that is his buyer's agents because he cannot keep up with all the leads he's generating. So he's on track to probably do 60. I think if the guy really does a few things that I've talked to him about, as far as going after more listings and stuff like that, he's still getting a lot of listings. I think he's got like 10 or 12 listings right now. But I think he could do more than 60 his first year. But he's going to be a great guest. And the reason why I'm really excited about having him on, he is a new agent actually doing it and prospecting. So it shows everybody if they actually just follow a system and actually work on connecting and doing good follow-up and giving great world-class service, they can do it too. It's not just the mega producers that have been in the business for 20 years like Greg, right? And Greg is helping brand new agents on his team probably having the same type of results with his coaching and stuff. So I'm really excited about that. How can they share this further and sign up with it?
Oh, for the next event?
Yeah.
We still have yet to create the next event. You'll get an email notification of the next event. We'll put it here in the comments. All right, and you'll be able to RSVP for that. It's not until about 2 or 3 weeks from now, so we'll have that there. And also, for anyone who's watching here at Viral Marketing, we send out over 1 million emails a month, specifically in the real estate niche, to get the best open and click-through rates to find out what works. And if anyone's interested, if you want to email me or just forward me like an email that you're sending out, we'll give you some tips. We have a checklist to put our emails through, and I'll email you back, and I'll give you some feedback and maybe how you can improve the click-through rates and how those emails are working for you if you're of interest.
And so, I got to vouch for Frank. We would not be doing these live Google Hangouts if it was not for Frank and his team. It takes a lot of work for the preparation and getting this ready, and just technically to figure this out. And Frank and his team has stepped up to the plate and do this. And I've been talking, like I said in the first episode, I've been talking about doing this for like 8 months because I really want to give back to the community. I've been in the business like Greg for 20 years, and I've done a pretty good, decent amount of business. And I've got a team of agents. Last year we closed 205 transactions off my website. But if it wasn't being involved with agents like Greg and part of masterminds and other top producing agents when I got into business, I wouldn't have been able to do what I've been able to do. So I really want to give back and help other agents. and bring people together so we can all share and create a great mastermind and a show every other Thursday. And I'm honored that Frank is helping me because he's a great guy. And I can't say enough about it. I know I'm bubbling over Frank, but
I appreciate it, man. It's great.
Making this thing happen. I just get excited. I'm sorry.
I love everybody. I love you too.
I got 10 kids, and I'm still excited. Okay, what can I say? Anyway,
right.
and I want to let everyone know too. If you really appreciate these sessions, we want to make this thing grow so we can share with as many realtors across the country. So feel free to share it in your Facebook groups that you're involved in when we're having these shows, or just other realtors that you think can get value from these. We really want you to share so we can all share and grow together.
Great.
And that's about all I have.
Well, Greg, thank you very much for your time today. Jeff,
you're welcome.
And we'll see you guys.
Thanks a lot.
The next event in 2 or 3 weeks after the 4th of July.
All right, sounds good. See you then.
Bye, everyone.